Shine for the merchants Amusement. Say said, claim me. Or are they so fatheaded? Dünde Chinesbrook. The station reeked of heat and metal and people who'd stopped caring years ago. Balefar wasn't a place you visited. It was a place you ended up when nothing else was left. Kellen Voss knew that. He'd landed only an hour ago, and already the weight of the place pressed on him like an old bruise. He walked fast through the docking corridor. Pipes hissed from above. Rust leaked from ceiling joints. Condensation gathered in pools along the deck. Flickering lights cast stuttering shadows on the walls, some too dim, others blinding white. He adjusted the strap on his shoulder, scanning the path ahead. His boots made hard contact with the grated floor, the sound echoing down the hall in sharp bursts. His ship, the antithesis, was running on borrowed time. The jump core regulator had shorted out during re-entry burn on Isra 9. No regulator, no jump. No jump, no escape. He needed the part, and he'd been told only one place had it left. The line, the lowest trade sector in Balefar. He hated coming this far down. The line wasn't like the upper markets, where you could at least pretend people were still people. Down here, the stalls didn't just sell scrap or food or weapons. They sold bodies. The smell hit first: unwashed skin, ozone, stale breath, and something more putrid beneath it. The air was warmer here, tighter, packed with bodies that didn't want to be seen. He moved past the first row of cages. Metal platforms, each one rigged with vertical beams. And chained to those beams, women. They weren't guarded. They didn't need to be. Each one was locked into place, displayed like merchandise. Thin, glowing price tags hovered over their heads. Most of them didn't speak. Some had stopped trying. Their eyes were dull, staring into nothing. He kept walking. A few merchants laughed as they let passing men touch the captives through the bars. Some spectators jeered, threw credits at the floor. One woman was forced to stand naked while they rated her aloud in 4 languages. No one stopped it. It was all part of the show. Then he heard it. Not a cry, not a plea, just a voice, quiet and low, calm and final. Take me, or I will suffer here. He turned before he realized he had. She was chained to a steel beam welded above her head. Her arms were stretched up, wrists clamped in aged iron cuffs bolted to thick links. The position wasn't for restraint. It was for display. Her body had been posed deliberately, tilted slightly to one side to draw attention to her shape. Her feet were bare, ankles bruised. She wasn't being held. She was being shown. For entertainment. Her skin was deep blue, smooth, unblemished in some places, marred in others. She was tall, striking, but her figure had lost weight. Muscles showed under her skin, but she looked like she hadn't eaten properly in days. Her outfit, if it could be called that, was nothing more than shredded ceremonial garb. Golden bands, torn fabric sashes, and bits of armor that had once signified honor, now left her mostly exposed. A performance piece. And yet her face, it wasn't broken. Her white hair hung in thick, tangled lengths past her hips. Her violet eyes, flecked with gold, locked directly on him. Unblinking. Unapologetic. Not begging. Warning. Behind him, a rotund merchant with yellowed eyes and a datapad chuckled. You like the Zyrene? She's still fresh. Not broken yet. Beautiful thing, isn't she? Kellen didn't answer. The merchant leaned closer. We put her up 2 days ago. Traders love her look. Some just watch. Others pay to get close. You'd be surprised what a woman like that does to a crowd. Kellen stared at her wrists. Skin torn, muscle twitching with fatigue. She say anything? He asked. The merchant blinked. Sometimes. Talks back. Says weird stuff. Honor, don't touch, that kind of junk. Still thinks she's somebody. She is somebody, Kellen said. The merchant snorted. Yeah? She was. Now she's property. Kellen reached into his belt pouch and pulled out his chip. I want her, he said flatly. Good choice. She's a fighter. The price stung. He paid anyway. A few moments later, he stood beside her as the restraints disengaged with a mechanical hiss. Her arms dropped. She staggered. He caught her instinctively. She flinched but didn't pull away. Let me go, she said weakly. You'll collapse. I'd rather fall standing than be carried like a prize. He stepped back. She tried to walk. Her knees buckled after 2 steps. He caught her again, this time without a word, and lifted her over his shoulder. She didn't fight. The merchant gave a thumbs up as Kellen walked away. Careful, friend. That one's got claws. And pride. She didn't speak again until they reached the ship. Inside the antithesis, it was cooler. Cleaner. Dimly lit, but solid. He lowered her onto the padded med bench in the corner of the hold. She propped herself up with one arm, barely. "Where are we going?" she asked. "Out of here." He pulled the med kit from the wall. Activated it. She stiffened. "Don't undress me." "I won't." He examined the injuries. Wrist lacerations, bruised ribs, electroshock burns along the back of her neck. Starvation level vitals. He applied gel, sealed wounds, rehydrated her veins with a portable drip. She flinched at first, but didn't resist. He worked in silence. "Why did you do it?" she asked finally. "Because no one else did." "I didn't ask you to." "Yes, you did." That shut her up. A few minutes later, she lay back on the bench, eyes half closed. She wasn't asleep, just resting. Kellen sat down across from her, wiped his hands clean. His stomach turned, and not from the smell of blood or coolant. She'd been chained for entertainment, watched like an animal, touched, mocked. And yet, when she saw him, she didn't beg. She warned him, "Take me, or I will suffer here." And now she was aboard his ship. He didn't know what came next. But whatever it was, she would choose it. That, at least, was hers. The hum of the ship's systems deepened as the antithesis detached from Balefar Station. The docking clamps released with a final hiss, and artificial gravity stabilized with a low mechanical thump. Kellen sat in the pilot's seat, fingers hovering over the console, waiting for the ship to tell him something was wrong. Nothing beeped. Nothing lit red. He allowed himself to exhale. Short. Controlled. The woman, Sayuri, was still in the med bunk, tucked into a corner with a blanket across her lap. She hadn't moved much, just shifted once to keep her back to the wall. She watched the cabin like she was still expecting to be grabbed. That instinct didn't go away in one night. Kellen opened the ration compartment, poured water into a tin cup, heated a pre-pack meal. The scent of it, protein-based, bland, filled the narrow galley. It was all he had, and even though it was running low, he stepped back into the bunk area and offered the cup first. She stared at it for 3 seconds, then took it. Her fingers trembled slightly as she drank, but she didn't let it spill. "You're not restraining me," she said, voice clearer now. Her throat must have hurt less. "You're not a prisoner. Is that what you think?" She stared at the cup, then back up at him. "You bought me. People don't do that without expecting something. I didn't buy you. I pay to stop them from hurting you. Same thing." "No, it's not." She studied him, measuring his words, his posture. His face was weathered but calm. No aggression. No flinch. His sidearm was holstered. Secure. His hands were open, not clenched. She didn't see lies in him. That made her more nervous. "You should have walked away," she said. "That was a smart move." "Maybe. You risked everything. I've done worse for less." There was silence between them for a moment, broken only by the sound of the jump drive warming. She ate slowly, keeping her eyes on him between bites. She hadn't asked where they were going, and he hadn't told her. Not because he wanted to keep her in the dark, but because he didn't know yet. "You said your name is Sayuri," he began, keeping his tone level. "Zyrene." She nodded once. "Your people. They were warriors, right? Ceremonial, code-based." "Were. That part of us is gone. Balefar doesn't erase history." "No," she said bitterly. "Just dignity." Kellen didn't argue. He understood that kind of loss. She didn't need a lecture on survival from him. She finally set the cup down and leaned back against the wall. "You don't ask many questions. You'll tell me what you want to. When you want to. Everyone else I've met asks first. Touches second. Then forces. I'm not everyone else." That seemed to land. Her shoulders relaxed a fraction, but her eyes didn't leave him. Kellen leaned against the frame of the cabin and crossed his arms. "You said you were put up on display 2 days ago. What happened before that?" "They raided our outpost. Zyrlith sector. Merchant-backed slavers. Armed with pulse blasters, disruptor packs. We tried to fight them. They captured the wounded. I was injured. They wanted someone exotic to draw crowds. She gestured at herself with a bitter smile. I matched the profile. He nodded slowly. The cuffs weren't for security. They posed you. Yes. And they made you speak? Yes. Told me if I didn't say something haunting, they'd shock the girl next to me. So I chose a sentence. Take me, or I will suffer here. Her voice didn't shake this time, but Kellen could see the memory flash behind her eyes, sharp, quick, buried again. He sat across from her. You're safe now. No one is safe out here. I'll try anyway. Another silence settled, the kind that came with mutual exhaustion. Then she asked quietly, why did you stop? He looked her straight in the eye. Because I've seen people walk by worse than you and do nothing. I was tired of being one of them. That answer seemed to settle something in her. The ship's console beeped, sensor sweep completed. No pursuit from Balefar. No pings. They were alone in this quadrant, for now. He turned to the navigation panel, entered the code for an old mining belt 3 jumps away. Uninhabited. Quiet. A good place to lay low, recalibrate, find his next step. You ever flown before? He asked, just to break the silence. She raised a brow. I'm not that primitive. Didn't say you were. I've piloted Zyrini assault craft. He smirked faintly. Then you'll find my heap of bolts charming. She tilted her head. Your heap of bolts carried me out of hell. That makes it sacred. That caught him off guard. He didn't show it. Sayuri leaned back, letting the warmth of the recycled air reach her bruised skin. She's still hurt, but something about the silence of the ship, the lack of eyes on her body, the absence of chains, that was new and strange and safe. Tentatively, Kellen moved to the front and sat at the helm. He flicked on a long-range scanner and started logging system diagnostics. Behind him, he heard her shifting onto her side. What now? She asked. He didn't turn. Now we get off the radar. Get you back to full strength. And after that, I haven't figured it out. I'm not staying long-term. You don't have to. But until you choose where to go, this ship is yours too. Another pause. Then, softly, you keep using that word. What word? Choose. He glanced over his shoulder. She was watching him, not with suspicion, but curiosity. And something softer. It was the first time he saw her eyes without tension behind them. He turned back to the controls. For now, that was enough. The ship drifted in the shadow of a broken asteroid field, shielded from long-range scans by the thick radiation pockets that made the region all but useless for trade or settlement. The mining belt Kellen had chosen was long abandoned, just fractured rock, drifting debris, and the occasional skeletal husk of an old or hauler. He ran a passive sweep for movement. Nothing. No signals. No heat blooms. They were safe for now. Sayuri was asleep again, but lightly. Her breathing was slow, controlled, as if she didn't fully trust herself to let go. She lay on her side, arms pulled close to her body, a spare blanket tucked beneath her cheek. Kellen watched her for a moment from the helm. Not out of voyeurism, but calculation. She needed rest. Real rest. And time. But time was a luxury they couldn't burn forever. He rose and stepped into the narrow storage corridor, unlocking the central locker. Inside, his old field gear, a sealed med pouch, 2 reserve oxygen canisters, and a tactical vest with a Red Cross patch still sewn on the shoulder. Faded but intact. He hadn't worn it in years. Too many memories. Too many bodies he couldn't save. He opened the secondary compartment. Inside were ration packs, protein bars, a roll of thermal blankets, and, finally, the spare clothes he'd salvaged from a Zyrini vessel over a year ago. He'd traded for them, never knowing if he'd meet another survivor. The armor was ceremonial, a sleeveless white tunic stitched with gold thread and flexible battle leggings designed for mobility and form. It wasn't complete, but it was clean, and more importantly, hers, culturally. He set the folded garments on the bench beside her. She stirred at the sound. Her eyes opened slowly, focused. She didn't panic, just looked up at him. These were Zyrini issue, he said quietly. Yours if you want them. She didn't speak at first, then slowly pushed herself upright. Her hair fell forward like a sheet of silver, partly covering one eye. You've met others? Only once. Medical evac on VYRSH station. 5 survivors. One of them gave me that uniform after I reset her shoulder. Did she live? He paused. She tried. Sarai looked down at the clothing, ran her fingers across the fabric. This belonged to a real warrior, she said. So does your skin, Kellen replied. A silence passed. Then she said, without looking at him, do you see me as broken? No. Stripped? No. She looked at him then, really looked. Then you're lying. I see someone who was treated like she didn't matter, he said. But that's not what I see when I look at you. The silence held. She stood, carefully clutching the blanket around her. Her body was still stiff. Her steps slow, but more stable than yesterday. She took the folded uniform and turned away from him. He didn't follow. He let her change in privacy. She emerged 10 minutes later wearing the tunic. It fit snug across her chest, the hem reaching her upper thighs. Her legs were bare, but she didn't seem ashamed. Her posture was straighter. The bruises along her collarbone were fading. Her hair had been finger-combed and tied loosely at the nape of her neck. You didn't look, she said. I told you I wouldn't. She nodded. And I believed you. Kellen handed her a protein bar and motioned toward the galley. She followed him. The small mess area had 2 bolted stools, a fold-down table, and 1 dim overhead light that buzzed when the gravity cycle shifted. As they ate, the tension softened, not gone but thinner. Then she asked something she hadn't before. Why are you out here alone? He didn't answer right away. I used to be a medic, he said finally. Field response for planetary militias. Saw a lot. Got tired of watching good people die because the higher-ups wanted clean optics. So I left. Took my ship. Started scavenging. Thought I could disappear between the stars. Stop losing people. Did it work? No. He took a sip of water. She leaned forward slightly. Is that why you saved me? No, he said. I saved you because when you looked at me, I saw something I hadn't seen in a long time. What? Fight. Her gaze softened just slightly. I wasn't sure you saw me at all, she admitted. You looked like someone trying very hard not to feel anything. I was. The 2 of them sat quietly, the dim light casting long shadows over the table. After a moment, she asked another question, quieter this time. What happens if they come looking for me? Kellen didn't hesitate. They'll regret it. You sound confident. I've survived long enough to know when I'm backed into a corner. She tilted her head. And you think I'm worth dying for? He met her gaze. That's not your decision. That answer left her still. Thoughtful. He stood and checked the console again. The scans remained clear. He flipped on the forward relay to start charging the jump capacitors for the next run. An empty moon with buried mineral vaults and enough salvage to barter for more fuel. Behind him, Sarai moved to the small viewport and stared out into the endless dark. Her reflection hovered in the glass, pale and flickering. You said I could choose, she murmured. You still can. I want something back, she said. Something I lost in that cage. What? My voice. Not just the words. The right to speak and be listened to. Kellen nodded slowly. Then say what you need. She turned to him fully. My name is Sarai Varn, daughter of Alenth, warrior of Zyrlith. I was shackled like an animal, made to entertain those beneath me. But I lived, and now I choose to stay on this ship. Not as cargo, not as property, as myself. He looked at her with steady eyes. Then that's what you are. No more needed to be said. For now, she wasn't broken, and neither was he. The first warning came as a flicker. Kellen stood at the console, eyes fixed on the NAV screen, when a sensor alert blinked red for half a second, then vanished. No ping, no trace signature, just a ghost signal from somewhere behind the asteroid belt. He leaned in, fingers tapping the diagnostic keys. Ran a manual sweep. Nothing came back. He didn't like that. Something wrong. Sarai's voice came from behind, steady but alert. He turned. She'd already crossed the cabin, barefoot, arms folded. The white tunic she wore had been refitted with a belt, cinched tighter at her waist. She moved like someone who still expected to fight again, like she never fully relaxed. I saw something, he said. Might be sensor bleed. Might be someone looking. Her jaw tensed. How far? No way to know unless they ping again. Could it be the ones who sold me? Kellen nodded once. Could be. Could be worse. He tapped open the ship's ECM system. It was old, patched together from 3 different models, but it still had enough juice to scramble their trail for a few minutes. If someone was scanning this belt, they'd have to be within 1 light minute to get anything meaningful. And that meant time was limited. Sarai stepped beside him, watching the screen. How long until the jump drive's ready? 20 minutes. Maybe less if I cut heating to the rear quarters. Do it. Kellen paused, glanced at her. You okay with freezing your bunk for a few hours? I spent 4 nights chained to a steel pipe. I can survive a little cold. He powered down the heating grid. Immediately, the temperature in the back half of the ship began to drop. Condensation formed on the bulkhead vents. Every system drew power toward the jump coils now, humming louder with effort. I need to know something, she said after a beat. If we're caught, what will you do? Fight, even if it gets you killed. I don't plan on making it easy for them. Her face didn't soften, but she stepped closer. You should have walked away. Still time. He looked her straight in the eye. I didn't walk away the first time. I won't start now. That stopped her. She studied him again, really studied him, as if trying to find a flaw, the hidden motive. But there was nothing, no performance. Just the same quiet man who'd wrapped a blanket around her without touching her skin, who'd asked her nothing until she was ready to speak. I don't understand you, she said finally. You're not the only one. A silence stretched between them. Then she spoke again, quieter now. I thought I'd be used again. I was ready for that, prepared to endure it. But you didn't even look at me when I was changing. I said I wouldn't. And you meant it. I always mean it. She looked away for a moment. Then, softly, I didn't believe men like you existed anymore. He didn't reply. He didn't need to. A sharp beep interrupted the moment. Console flashing again. This time, the signal was real. Tracking pulse. Short range. Directional. They were being scanned. Power up weapons, Kellen muttered. Brace the forward deflectors. The ship's HUD flickered to life. One small red dot pulsed at the far edge of the field, just inside the shadow of a drifting mass of ice and scrap metal. No transponder. No ID. I know that pattern, Sarai whispered. He glanced at her. She was staring at the screen like she'd seen a ghost. Who is it? Nyrek, she said. He was one of the enforcers at Balefar. Took pleasure in hurting the new ones, especially the women who fought back. You're sure? His ship has that sensor stutter. Old Jaxel design modded. Kellen's mind calculated fast. He must have been following silent, waiting for us to settle somewhere. She nodded grimly. He won't contact us. He'll try to board. Disable the ship. Chain me again. Kellen's eyes narrowed. He'll try. Another alert. The red dot was moving, coming around the debris field in a slow arc. Closing in. Sarai stepped back, steadying herself. If I have to fight. You don't. You can't face him alone. I'm not alone anymore. Her expression flickered. Surprise. Maybe something else. Trust. Kellen locked the ship's position, diverted all power to the jump drive. Countdown. 8 minutes. The enemy ship was closing. Faster now. He gripped the flight stick and swiveled the ship away from the debris belt, trying to stay on the dark side of the largest asteroid. But the other vessel was gaining. It wasn't a cargo ship. It was light, fast, and armed. Sarai moved to the weapons panel and activated the rear flares. You know how to use that? He asked. I trained for 10 years before I was captured. She wasn't bluffing. 2 flare pods launched from the underside of the antithesis, exploding in brilliant white spheres of heat and magnetic static. The tracker signal blinked once, then split. Nyrek's ship hesitated, slowed, adjusting. Then he fired. A pulse blast hit their rear shields. The ship rocked violently. Loose tools clattered to the floor. Sarai grunted, bracing herself on the wall. Shields are holding, Kellen said. We just need 60 more seconds. She looked at the NAV screen. If he hits the engine directly, we're not going anywhere. Another impact. The ship jerked left. Lights dimmed, then returned. Just hold together, Kellen muttered. Come on. Sarai slid into the co-pilot chair beside him. She looked at him, breathing hard, eyes sharp. If we get out of this. He looked at her. You said I could choose, she whispered. Then hear this. I don't want to run anymore. I want to fight. With you. Then we fight. The jump drive screamed to life. Kellen yanked the drive lever. The stars outside stretched into white lines, then vanished. They were gone. The ship lurched into hyperspace, battered but intact. The lights dimmed again. The temperature dropped further. In the silence that followed, Sarai exhaled, slowly, as if she'd been holding her breath for years. She turned to Kellen. He looked at her, drenched in sweat, blood crusted at his temple, but alive. "You still don't regret it?" she asked. He shook his head. "No, not once." And she nodded, voice almost a whisper. "Then I choose to stay." The ship was quiet. After the jump, the stars returned in slow pulses, drifting like embers across the main viewport. The damage was manageable. Systems held. Shields were scorched, but the core was intact. Kellen powered down non-essential functions and set the ship into low-power cruise. The adrenaline had faded. Now the silence pressed in, thick, heavy, filled with everything unsaid. Sarai hadn't left the co-pilot's chair. She sat with her arms across her chest, her breathing slow, deep, and even. Her skin glistened with sweat, and a smear of soot ran from her jaw down her neck. Her hair was a tangled mess of white strands, some plastered to her shoulder. She didn't seem to notice. Kellen stood. Pain spiked in his side, probably bruised during the blast jolt. He didn't react to it. "I'll check the damage," he said quietly. Sarai didn't answer right away. Then softly, "You're bleeding." He looked down. A thin streak of red ran down his forearm from a shallow gash just above the elbow. He hadn't felt it. "I'll clean it up." "Let me." He paused. She stood slowly, moving with care. Her legs were steadier now, her footing sure. She approached him, eyes focused, not on his face but the wound. She didn't ask for permission. She just took his hand gently and guided him toward the bench beside the main console. He sat. She opened the med kit, took a sterile cloth, wiped the blood. Her hands moved with quiet precision, but her fingers trembled slightly, either from fatigue or from the closeness. Maybe both. He watched her. No questions, no assumptions, just observation. "You could have left me behind in the belt," she said, not looking at him. "Saved yourself." "I didn't think about it." "I did." She met his eyes then. "I asked myself if I would have risked that for a stranger. If I'd seen a man in chains instead of a woman. If I'd stopped." Kellen was quiet. "Then would you have?" "I don't know," she said. "That bothers me." "You don't have to answer it now." She pressed a cloth to his arm, then sprayed antiseptic. He didn't flinch. She noticed. "You don't react to pain. Not the small kind." Her hand slowed. She looked at him differently now, not just as the man who saved her, but as someone who had clearly been through something. She saw the burn scar on the side of his neck, the faint surgical line beneath his collar, the faded ring indentation around his finger. "You lost someone," she said. "Yeah." "Wife?" "No." "Partner?" "Pilot." Name was Ren. "What happened?" "Mid-jump collision. She died before we touched back into real space." "I'm sorry." "Me too." A silence followed. Not awkward, not tense. Just real. Sarai sat beside him, her arm brushing his. She stared forward at the viewport. "When I was chained, I stopped thinking about myself as a person. I stopped believing my choices mattered." He looked at her. She continued, voice quiet, steady. "Even after you freed me, I waited for the moment it would change. When you'd ask for something, claim what you thought you owned." "I never will," he said. "I know that now." She turned to face him fully, and for the first time since they met, her expression wasn't guarded. It wasn't proud. It wasn't even cautious. It was open. "I'm not used to silence that isn't dangerous," she said. "This ship, it doesn't feel like a cage." "It's not." She nodded just once, then reached up, slowly, and touched the side of his face. Her fingers brushed the edge of his beard. Light, hesitant. He didn't move. "I need to relearn what it means to be touched by choice," she said. "You have time." "I don't want time. Not right now. I want closeness. But I want it without expectation. Without pressure." "You'll have it," he said. Sarai leaned forward. Not fast, not desperate, and rested her forehead against his. Her hand slid to the back of his neck, holding there just enough to feel him. They stayed like that for a long moment. No kiss, no urgency, just two people breathing together, sharing space, sharing the safety they'd carved out of chaos. She whispered something, not to tempt, not to seduce, but as a quiet declaration. I feel real again. Kellen's hand moved to her shoulder. Steady, grounded. You are. And for the first time since either of them could remember, they didn't feel alone. The silence inside the antithesis had changed. It was no longer the silence of isolation or weariness. It was filled now with something warmer, a fragile kind of safety. Something earned, shared. It clung to the walls like breath on glass. Sayuri stood alone in the ship's tiny hygiene alcove. A narrow strip of polished metal on the wall served as a mirror. She studied herself in it, shoulders square, jaw tight. The bruises were fading, but they hadn't vanished. They wouldn't for days. She ran her hands along her arms, then over her hips, where the ceremonial bands had once dug into her skin. She touched each mark, not with shame, but with memory. For the first time since her capture, she saw herself as a whole being. Not as a product, not as something on display. Just Sayuri Varn. Warrior. Survivor. Woman. Behind her, the door remained unlocked. That mattered more than she could say. In the main cabin, Kellen knelt beneath a maintenance panel, hands coated in coolant gel as he adjusted the coolant line damage during Nyrex's assault. The hum of the ship's systems was steady again. Stable, but it couldn't run forever. Supplies were low. Credits were lower. They need to land soon. He heard soft steps behind him. Not rushed. Not timid. Sayuri crouched beside him. I can help, she said simply. He handed her the light without question. They worked in quiet rhythm for a few minutes, hands passing tools, checking readouts. Kellen liked the way she moved now, grounded, deliberate. Like she'd retaken ownership of her body, her will. When they finished, he leaned back against the wall, arms resting on his knees. She did the same beside him. Their shoulders brushed. I've been thinking, she said. When you jumped, you chose an empty system. Dead rock. No supply lanes. That means you weren't just running. No, he said. I was buying us time. Why? Because once someone puts a bounty on a woman like you, they don't stop until they think they've won. You think there's a bounty? I'd be shocked if there wasn't. Sayuri looked down. Not in fear, but in calculation. Then we have to strike first. Kellen studied her. Strike where? There's a supply outpost on Drex 4. Small. Private. Illegal enough to take anyone's money. I trained there once during a deployment. If I'm right, one of the Zyrene cell captains might still be running the Outer Rim blacknet from there. Kellen frowned slightly. That information should have come sooner. I didn't remember until now, she said. My mind's still reconnecting. He nodded once. Accepted that. We can make the jump in under 6 hours if we divert power to... She cut him off by touching his arm. Wait. He turned to her. I don't want to talk tactics right now. He waited. Sayuri drew in a breath. There's something I need to do, but only if you let me. His brow furrowed slightly. You don't need permission. I want to touch you, she said. Not just physically. I want to be close. I want to feel someone without fear again. But I need to be the one who decides when. And how. Kellen didn't answer right away. He didn't reach for her. He just let the moment breathe. Then, okay. She shifted, straddled his lap slowly, knees pressing into the padded floor, thighs on either side of his. She moved with purpose, not performance. Her hands moved up to his jaw, her thumbs brushing the edge of his stubble. His hands remained still, resting on the floor beside him. I don't want to forget what it feels like to want, she whispered. Then don't, he said. She kissed him, not like someone desperate to be wanted, but like someone reclaiming a part of herself, one breath at a time. The kiss was slow, firm. Her hands guided it. Her body leaned in, steady, without hesitation. His hands lifted, finally, palms against her back, warm from the cabin's recycled heat. He didn't pull. He didn't push. He just held. When she pulled back, her breathing was heavier. Her forehead rested against his. You didn't take control, she said. I never wanted to. She nodded and smiled. Not wide, not forced. A small, true smile that reached her eyes. They stayed like that for a long while. The ship hummed around them. Finally, she stood. Set the course to D-Rex 4. I want to meet whoever put a price on me. He rose beside her. You sure? Her eyes were sharp now. Alive. They made me a target. I'll show them I'm not afraid to be seen. He turned toward the cockpit. She followed him. Whatever came next, she would face it by choice. And she wouldn't face it alone. D-Rex 4 hung in the void like a rusted coin, half lit, half forgotten. The surface was mostly rock and metal, dotted with small geothermal hubs and decades-old bunkers repurposed into smugglers' dens and data exchanges. Kellen's ship coasted down into a hidden canyon where heat signatures were minimal and the landing pad was shielded by collapsed cargo dome. Perfect for people who didn't want to be found. They came dressed not for war, but for presence. Kellen wore his old medic vest over a utility shirt, sidearm holstered. Sarai walked beside him in full ceremonial attire. The refitted Zyrini tunic, gold-threaded sash now rebraided and tied around her waist. She'd tied her white hair back into a warrior's knot. The bruises had faded, but the fire behind her eyes hadn't. They didn't speak much on the descent. There was no need. Inside the outpost, the air was damp with generator heat and miner's dust. The narrow hallway opened into a dim-lit chamber full of terminals, glass displays, and old tech welded together with local scrap. A group of operators worked quietly along the walls, traders, slicers, runners. One figure waited in the center, facing away from them, gloved hands clasped behind his back. Sarai froze mid-step. I know him, she said. The man turned. Nyrek, no longer a backroom thug, now dressed in merchant's black, with a silver lapel pin that marked him as a registered subcontractor of Balefar Exchange. His smile was thin, controlled. I told them someone would come for her, he said, nodding toward Kellen. They always do. Kellen didn't move. This isn't a trade. Nyrek gestured casually. No? Then what is it? Revenge? Closure? Sarai stepped forward. This is a message, she said clearly, and you're going to deliver it. Nyrek's smile faltered. To who? To every scum on Balefar, Arkan Vaults, the Drift Rings, whoever thinks Zyrini women are property. She stopped 2 paces from him, looked him in the eye. You chain us, strip us, sell us to the highest bidder. But we remember names. She pulled a small disc from her belt, tossed it at his feet. The audio recording played instantly, her voice in that cage. Take me, or I will suffer here. The room went silent. Her next words cut through it like steel. You recorded me to sell pain. Now I'm giving it back. Kellen stepped forward, hand on his sidearm. Not drawing, just reminding. You'll wipe every trace of her name from your system, he said. Every bid history, every chain code. And if I don't, Nyrek asked Cole now, then you'll learn what happens when the product you sold comes back armed. Nyrek studied them both. His bravado faltered. He turned slightly to the operators behind him. None moved to help. They'd heard enough. Wordlessly, Nyrek reached for the console, deleted the line entries, purged the biometric tags, erased the sale record. It's done. Sarai nodded once. Then you're done. They turned and left without another word. Outside, the wind had picked up. Dust swirled across the rocky surface, coating their boots in gray. Back aboard the Antithesis, Kellen sealed the hatch. Sarai stood at the viewport, watching D-Rex 4 vanish behind them. That was the last place, she said. He didn't ask what she meant. He already knew. She turned toward him slowly. I'm not drifting anymore. Good, he said. I'd like you to stay. I'm not a guest. I know. She stepped closer. Her hand touched his chest, rested above his heart. I don't want to go back to who I was before the cage. And I don't want to be what they try to make me. I want to be who I've become. With me? He asked quietly. She nodded, then kissed him, fully, deeply, this time without caution. They moved through the corridor slowly, hands still linked, eyes never leaving each other, into the warmth of the small, sleeping quarters. She removed her tunic piece by piece, not with hesitation, but with calm certainty. And when she laid beside him, it wasn't out of fear or survival. It was a gift. Their connection that night was quiet, close, and real. 2 people finding peace in a place no one expected. Later, in the dark, she rested her head on his chest, her voice barely above a whisper. You gave me a life back. You gave it to yourself, he said. I just carried the weight until you could walk again. She smiled against his skin. And for the first time in years, she slept without nightmares. They didn't need to run anymore. They were free. Together. 3 months later, the sun over Vayara, 3 rows in soft gold. It filtered through the dense canopy of alien trees, warm light dancing across the field outside the settlement's perimeter wall. Birds, real ones, not drones, sang over the hum of wind turbines in the distance. The air smelled of rich soil, ozone, and the faint sweetness of wild pollen. The antithesis sat on a cleared stretch of land near the tree line. It had been refitted, reinforced, and repainted, not for war but for life. The scars from the Balefar chase were gone. The engine hummed clean now, thanks to a rebuilt core and days of meticulous work. A nearby cabin stood half-built, its walls made of recycled starship plating and local lumber. The roof was still missing a panel. Tools were scattered around the worksite. No one was rushing. Kellen stood beside the frame, shirt off, arms streaked with sweat and sawdust. He adjusted a metal beam while Sayuri held it steady from the opposite side. She wore a sleeveless tunic tied above the waist, her toned arms visible beneath the fabric. Her white hair was now braided in a single long cord down her back, swaying gently as she worked. Neither of them spoke as they lifted the beam into place. They didn't need to. They moved in rhythm, measured, practiced, easy. After it was locked in, Sayuri stepped back, examining their work. It's crooked. It's character, Kellen said. It's lazy, she replied. He chuckled. It's temporary. So, was the cargo hatch we slept under for a week? We survived, didn't we? She arched a brow. Barely. Your ribs never healed right. He shrugged, still breathing. She came closer and pressed a hand gently to his chest, over the scar. Her touch wasn't sensual. It was familiar, grounding. You don't hide your pain anymore, she said. Neither do you. They stood like that for a moment, just breathing. The wind shifted. A small girl ran out from the tree line. A local, maybe 5 years old, with copper-colored skin and long antennae sweeping from her temples. She waved as she passed, laughing, arms flailing with joy. Behind her, a dog-like creature barked twice and chased after her through the field. Sayuri smiled. I used to think I'd never smile again, she said. You don't just smile, Kellen said. You radiate. She looked at him. So do you? When you're not pretending you don't care. He leaned in. I care. Deeply. I just have a limited facial vocabulary. That made her laugh. Open, unguarded, the kind of laugh that cracks open a chest full of old memories and lets the air rush in. Later that day, they sat side by side on the ship's ramp. A warm breeze stirred the grass. Sayuri had her legs stretched out, toes bare, head resting on Kellen's shoulder. I used to think the stars were where I belonged, she said. But now, I think this planet, this dirt, this sweat, it means more. Because you built it? No, because we did. She turned her face up to him, her voice low but sure. I don't need to run anymore. Not from my past. Not from who I am. I'm not healing anymore, Kellen. I'm whole. He kissed her then, soft, unhurried. Not because he needed to, because he wanted to. Because love, for once, didn't hurt. That night, they slept curled together beneath the open sky. No alarms, no walls, no chains. Just skin on skin, breath for breath. Safe, free, home.